They didn't see a mother, they saw a problem with a purse. That's how one visit to a neighborhood bank spirals into public humiliation for a woman who's done nothing but raise a son who made it big. What begins as a quiet errand turns into a lesson about perception, power, and the dignity people carry when the world refuses to see them clearly. But when a familiar face flashes across the bank's digital screens, everything changes, and not just for her. Before we go any further, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe, because tomorrow's story peels back another layer of truth you won't want to miss. Gloria Campbell didn't like asking for help. Not from neighbors, not from church folk, and especially not from her only son. Even as her knees began to ache more in the mornings, and the water heater in her small bungalow clunked and hissed like it was whispering its last breath, she told no one, not even when she had to boil water on the stove just to take a bath. Austin had found out anyway. She didn't know how. Probably heard it in her voice during their weekly call, the way she sighed a little too long when he asked how she'd been. Gloria had tried to steer the conversation back to him, like always, but Austin didn't miss things. Never had. 3 days later, a check arrived in the mail. It was tucked in a clean white envelope with his company's logo in the top corner, Campbell Innovations, and a handwritten note inside that simply read, "Just in case something breaks again, Mama. Use it. No arguments." It was signed with a little heart, like he used to draw on the backs of her birthday cards when he was 10. Gloria sat at the kitchen table for 20 full minutes staring at that check. $9,500. Not rounded, not a perfect 10. Austin was smart like that. Made it feel less like charity, more like help he'd already budgeted for. She didn't call to say thank you right away. She didn't cry either. She just folded it carefully, tucked it into her purse, and made up her mind to take it to the bank first thing in the morning. The lavender dress she chose wasn't new, but it still held its shape, stiff at the sleeves, soft around the collar. It was her church dress, saved for Sundays or funerals, and this was neither, but it felt close to both. She pinned her natural hair back into a tight twist, just the way her mother used to do before town visits, and clasped her modest gold earrings into place with slow, certain fingers. She didn't check herself in the mirror. She didn't need to. Her purse was clean, her shoes were quiet, and her hands didn't shake as she locked the door behind her. The bank was only 7 minutes away by bus, 12 if she walked. She decided to walk. Not because she didn't have money for the fare, not because she enjoyed the humidity, but because she wanted the time. Time to feel steady. Time to think. By the time she stepped through the glass doors of Crescent National Bank, the air conditioning slapped the warmth from her skin. She blinked once, adjusted to the buzz of fluorescence and the quiet tapping of fingers on digital screens. It used to be a credit union, she remembered. Red carpet, real plants, people who knew your name. Now everything was sleek and silver and hollow. There were only 2 tellers at the counter. One was helping an elderly woman with a roll of quarters. The other, a younger woman with slick straight hair and long shimmering nails, was scrolling through something on her screen. Gloria stepped forward when the woman looked up. "Good morning," she said, voice warm but practiced. "I'm here to deposit this." She opened her purse and pulled out the envelope, careful not to bend the check inside. She laid it flat on the counter. The teller gave it a quick glance. Then a second, longer one. "Is this yours?" There was no confusion in the question, only doubt. "Yes," Gloria said softly, still smiling. "My son sent it." The teller's lips pinched just slightly, the way people do when something doesn't sit right. She picked up the check between 2 long acrylics, like it might smudge. "Do you have an account here?" And of course. The teller typed something into the screen, eyes flicking back and forth. Then she looked at the check again. "Austin Campbell," she read slowly. "And Who is that to you? My son. What does he do? Gloria's breath hitched before she answered, not from fear, from the weight of it all. He owns a clean energy company. The teller raised her eyebrows, like she didn't quite believe it. That's a lot of money. It's not a problem, Gloria said, keeping her voice even. You can call him if you need to. The woman didn't reach for the phone. Instead, she leaned back slightly and looked at Gloria, like she was doing her a favor by not calling security. Without a word, the teller picked up the check again and slid it toward the edge of the counter. But she didn't hand it back. She fed it into the shredder beside her desk. The sound wasn't loud, but in that moment it felt louder than anything Gloria had ever heard. Her smile didn't fall right away. It cracked slowly. Excuse me? The teller shrugged. If it's real, he can write you another one. But we don't accept suspicious deposits, especially not that size. Behind her, someone in line sighed loudly. Another person turned around just in time to catch the last piece of the check disappear into the shredder's teeth. Gloria didn't raise her voice. She didn't slap the counter. She just stared, not at the teller, not even at the machine, but at the space where her son's gift had been. I'd like to speak with your manager, she said, voice trembling but firm. You can come back with documentation, the teller replied, already waving the next customer forward. Gloria stepped aside. She didn't move far, just enough to stand out of the way. Her hands stayed wrapped around the handle of her purse like a rope thrown into a storm. She didn't cry. She didn't blink. She waited. And the only thing she could think, louder than the shredder, louder than the woman's voice, was how her son had worked too hard, come too far to have his mother treated like a fraud. She glanced at the scrolling ads on the wall monitor. Some faces smiled, others posed in suits. And for one flicker of a second, she thought, if only they knew who he was. Then she sat down and waited for someone, anyone, to see her. The waiting chairs near the windows were newer, covered in clean plastic that tried to look like leather, but they weren't comfortable. Gloria Campbell sat in one, her knees tucked together, her purse resting neatly in her lap. She didn't shift, didn't lean back. She sat the way women of her generation had always been taught to sit, with care, like someone might be watching. And in this moment they were. 2 customers had taken glances after the incident at the counter. One man, still in line, whispered something to the woman beside him. The woman gave a slow shake of her head and turned away, trying to act like she wasn't curious. Gloria kept her eyes on the floor. The tile was spotless. White with tiny gray specks, polished enough to reflect the light. Years ago it used to be faded red carpet. She remembered walking in during the summers to cash her school checks and feeling the soft padding under her feet. The old credit union had smelled like cedar and printer paper. Now everything smelled like lemon disinfectant. The teller, the one who shredded Austin's check, hadn't looked at her again. She was busy now, flashing a forced smile at a man depositing a stack of cash. Her voice had changed too, high and chirpy. Gloria recognized it. It was the kind of voice some people used when they thought they were being watched. The other teller, a gray-haired man with kind eyes, kept glancing over at Gloria in quiet confusion. He hadn't been paying attention during the moment, but he knew something was off now. She could feel it in the way his gaze lingered, like he wanted to say something but didn't quite know what. A tall man in a polo shirt with the Crescent Bank logo finally emerged from a side door. Mid-40s maybe, tan, confident in that manufactured way. He approached Gloria slowly, like she might cause a scene, even though she hadn't raised her voice once. Gloria looked up. I'm the branch manager. Is there something I can assist you with? His tone was practiced, professional. That default, low-lilt customer service voice trained to sound like concern. Yes, she said softly. One of your tellers just destroyed my son's check. The manager blinked. I'm sorry. Destroyed? She shredded it. Right in front of me. He paused. The kind of pause that isn't confusion, but calculation. And what amount was the check for? $9,500, Gloria answered. He raised an eyebrow. And do you bank with us? I do, for over 20 years. And you don't have the check anymore? Gloria looked at him. It was shredded. He nodded slowly, like he was trying to process something he didn't quite believe. Well, unfortunately, without the check itself or a photo, there's not much we can do right now. You can check your security footage, she said. I was right there. I'll look into that, he replied, still calm. But these things take time. He gave a small, polite smile, the kind people give when they're hoping you'll leave without pushing harder. I just want this resolved, Gloria said. You understand? In the meantime, if your son can issue another check, deal with it. He shouldn't have to. That stopped him. Gloria hadn't raised her voice, but the firmness in it gave the man pause. The teller, the same one with the long nails and heavy lashes, looked up now. She could hear them. The manager glanced toward her, then back at Gloria. I'll speak with the teller, he said. If you'd like to leave your contact information, I'll follow up once we've reviewed the footage. Gloria reached into her purse and handed him a small card with her number. His hand brushed hers for a moment, and in that second she wondered if he even saw her, or just a customer file with a problem attached to it. Thank you, he said. Gloria stood slowly. Her knees ached a little, but she didn't let it show. She adjusted the strap of her purse and gave him a small nod. Then, with quiet dignity, she walked toward the doors. Outside, the sun had shifted. It sat higher now, making the sidewalk brighter and harder to look at. Gloria didn't rush. She walked the same way she came, calm, deliberate, each step echoing faintly off the pavement. The bus stop sat just ahead. She thought about taking it this time, but something in her told her to keep walking. She didn't feel angry yet. Not fully. It hadn't hit her, and the shock was still too thick, like walking through water. Her son had sent her that check with love, not guilt, not charity. It was something that said, I see you, Mama. I remember everything. And someone had torn it apart in 2 seconds. Not because it was fake, not because it was forged, but because they looked at her and saw something suspicious. Her phone buzzed quietly in her bag. She stopped, pulled it out, and saw the name. Austin. She let it ring once more before answering. Hey, baby. Mama. I just got an alert. The bank rejected the deposit. There was a pause on her end. She tried to keep her voice steady. They didn't reject it, they shredded it. But I went in this morning, told the girl it was from you. She didn't ask to call, didn't verify, just fed it through the machine. Austin went quiet. Gloria could hear his breathing pick up. I'm coming home, he said. No, baby, you don't have to do that. Yes, I do. You have work. I don't care, he said. His voice was sharp now. I'm getting on a plane tonight. Austin. No. He was already moving. She could hear the echo of his footsteps in a hallway, the slam of a car door. This isn't just about a check. Gloria didn't argue, because deep down she knew he was right. The teller's nameplate read Danielle, engraved in gold, but nothing about her demeanor sparkled. Her hands moved fast when dealing with the customers after Gloria left, her voice growing more pleasant, more professional. Her nails clicked as she slid bills across the counter, nodding with cheerful efficiency. But her eyes kept drifting back toward the glass doors, where Gloria had walked out not 10 minutes earlier. Danielle tapped at her screen, then glanced toward the manager's office. The door was closed again. She bit the corner of her lip, then flipped through a stack of small forms beside her keyboard. No one had said anything to her about the check, yet. The customer in front of her was a woman in gym clothes, trying to withdraw $40. Danielle smiled, finished the transaction, and called, "Next," a little too loudly. Meanwhile, Gloria stood at the corner of Brooklyn Avenue and Clay, her phone pressed to her ear, barely noticing the rumble of cars or the rush of wind as a city bus hissed to a stop beside her. "You really don't need to come," she said again. "I'm already at the airport," Austin replied. "If I don't show up for my own mother, what kind of man am I?" She smiled faintly. "The kind who still has a company to run," she said, "and a keynote to prepare for. I know what week it is, Austin." "I'll rewrite it on the plane," he said, "or in the hotel room, I don't care." Gloria didn't answer. She just listened to his breathing on the other end. "I've worked too hard for people to treat you like that," he added after a moment. She could hear the edge in his voice, sharp, controlled. He was angry. Not loud angry, quiet angry, the kind of anger that sat in the chest and didn't go away. "I didn't tell you so you'd come running," she said gently. "I just didn't want you to wonder what happened if the money didn't post." "Mama, it's not about the money." She nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "I know." Back at Crescent National Bank, the lobby had grown busier. A woman in scrubs waited near the entrance, and two young men stood at the ATM, muttering about overdraft fees. Danielle tried not to look up as the manager emerged again. He didn't approach her immediately. Instead, he walked to the corner of the lobby and spoke in hushed tones to the older male teller, the one who had seen Gloria sitting and waiting. They talked for less than a minute, then parted. Danielle pretended not to notice. But her shoulders had tightened. She'd been trained to recognize fraud, to watch for irregular behavior, strange amounts, unusual body language, inconsistent stories. She didn't like how it made her feel, because sometimes the checklist in her head didn't match the real picture in front of her. Sometimes the gut feeling wasn't from instinct, it was from bias, and she knew it. But that morning, when Gloria Campbell had stepped up in her lavender dress, polite and composed, Danielle's mind had flared with doubt. Before the check was even unfolded, she didn't know why. Or maybe she did. The name Austin Campbell sounded familiar. Too familiar. But she hadn't connected the dots. Not in that moment. All she saw was a large check and a woman who didn't look like the kind of customer who usually walked in with one. So she'd made a choice. And now she was waiting for someone to call her on it. Gloria, meanwhile, had walked home. She refused to cry, though something hot prickled behind her eyes. Her living room was clean. Sunlight filtered through the curtains. A picture of Austin at age 8, missing his 2 front teeth, arms raised in victory after winning the science fair, sat on the bookshelf. She stared at it for a while, then walked into the kitchen and put on a kettle for tea. By the time she sat down, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text. Landed. Be there in 30. She stared at the screen for a moment. Her boy had flown halfway across the country, just to make things right. In the living room, the local news played softly. And there it was again. His face. A promo for a conference, just a 30-second ad. Austin Campbell, CEO of Solgen Technologies, speaking this Friday at the Charlotte Energy Forum. He stood at a podium in the clip, smiling, confident, his name bold across the bottom of the screen. She shook her head slowly. That bank teller, that girl. She had no idea who she'd dismissed. An hour later, Gloria stood at her screen door as a sleek black sedan pulled up outside. Austin stepped out, still in his blazer, travel wrinkled but unbothered. He looked around, then smiled when he saw her. "Hey, Mama." Gloria opened the door and folded him into a hug before he could take another step. "You didn't have to do all this," she murmured into his shoulder. He held her tighter. "Yes, I did." They sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where she'd opened his check just 2 days before. She poured tea for both of them. Austin didn't touch his. "I've already called the district office," he said, "and I've got someone pulling the contact for the regional VP. Austin." "No," he said firmly. "This doesn't get swept under the rug, not this time." Gloria nodded slowly. She didn't want a scene. She didn't want anyone fired. But she also wasn't going to stop him. Because deep down, even if she wouldn't admit it, she wanted them to know. Not just who Austin was, but who she was, too. The mother who raised him, the woman behind the man on the screen. Austin didn't walk into the bank angry. Not loud angry, at least. That wasn't his style. He'd learned long ago that walking into a room furious gave people an excuse to ignore you, made it easier for them to reduce you down to just another upset black man. He wasn't going to let anyone take his power like that. He walked in calm. Pressed navy suit, dress shirt open at the collar, no tie. He moved like he didn't need to explain who he was, because he didn't. The bank lobby was quiet for a Monday morning. A few people in line, a woman at the coin machine, a security guard sipping coffee in the corner. He took a slow breath and stepped up to the counter. Danielle was there, the same teller who'd shredded the check. Her fingers froze above the keyboard when she saw him. "Good morning," he said. His voice was smooth, unbothered. "Are you the one who assisted Gloria Campbell yesterday?" Danielle blinked. I think I did, yes. She's my mother." Danielle's eyes widened. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out at first. Then finally, "I wasn't sure if the check was... there were concerns about..." "I understand," Austin said, cutting gently through her words. "You thought it was suspicious." Danielle gave a small, nervous nod. "Did you try to verify it?" She looked past him, hoping for backup. "I didn't have any contact information. I didn't want to risk..." "You had her name, her account, and my name. And the phone number's right there on the check. Top left corner." Her mouth parted slightly, as if she was about to say something else. But nothing came. Austin gave her a long look. Not angry, not smug, just steady. "I flew in this morning," he said. "From Seattle." Danielle swallowed. "And I'd like to speak to your manager." He didn't raise his voice. Ring slammed his hand on the counter. But somehow everyone turned to look anyway. The woman behind him in line stepped back. The security guard straightened up. Danielle nodded quickly and disappeared into the office behind the counter. Austin took a step back, just enough to see the screen mounted above the lobby entrance. It was rotating through bank promos. Low-interest loans, new savings accounts, a spotlight on local business leaders. Then, there it was. Meet Austin Campbell, CEO of Solgen Technologies. A still image. His face. Smiling, confident. Black suit, white shirt, a hand mid-gesture, as if making a point. Below, in all caps, keynote speaker, Charlotte Energy Forum this Friday. The teller next to Danielle leaned forward slowly to get a better look. His eyes darted from the screen to Austin and stayed there. The manager, same man as before, khaki slacks and a stiff walk, came out of his office with Danielle beside him. He looked at Austin, did a double take at the screen, and cleared his throat. "Mr. Campbell, I presume?" "Yes. I understand there was an unfortunate situation yesterday involving your mother's check. I want to assure you that this doesn't reflect the standards of our institution. You shredded a $9,500 0-cent check from me," Austin interrupted, not bothering to smile. No phone call, no verification, just assumed it was fake and destroyed it. The manager's voice softened. "We do take precautions against fraud, sir. Large checks from unknown senders can sometimes trigger internal flag. You didn't flag it, you shredded it." A pause. Danielle stood frozen beside them, her hands clasped in front of her, eyes low. Austin turned slightly to the side and gestured at the screen behind him. Your own ad is running in your lobby. You're using my face to market your bank's involvement in the community. Meanwhile, the same institution decided my mother couldn't possibly be trusted with a check from me. The manager opened his mouth, closed it. Austin didn't wait. She raised me, on one income, taught public school for 30 years. She opened her first account here when this place still had real carpet and wood chairs. Now someone sees her, a black woman in her 60s, with a check, and decides that can't be real. The lobby had gone quiet. Even the coin machine had stopped rattling. No one dared speak. Austin didn't yell. He didn't need to. His words carried. You don't need to apologize to me, he added. You need to apologize to her. The manager nodded slowly. We will. I'll call her myself. Austin raised an eyebrow. She doesn't want a call. She wants her dignity. Danielle finally spoke. I'm sorry. She didn't look at him. She looked toward the floor, toward her own shoes. I didn't mean to, she trailed off. Austin looked at her for a long moment. You didn't mean to, he echoed. But you did. She nodded. The manager stepped forward. Mr. Campbell, if you'd be willing to meet with our regional director, we'd like to discuss how we can make this right. I'm not here for a meeting. Austin turned and looked around the lobby. He let the silence sit. The image on the screen shifted again, his face fading into a generic ad about student loans. He looked back at the manager one last time. I'm here to remind you, he said, that we see everything, even when you think we don't belong. Then he turned and walked out. Not fast, not slow, but steady, the same pace his mother had taken when she left that lobby. Outside, the air was warm. Gloria stood at the curb, waiting. Austin opened the car door for her. She stepped in without a word. He didn't say anything until they were driving. They saw the ad, he said, while I was standing right there. Gloria looked out the window. Funny how the world works, she said softly. Neither of them smiled. But both of them felt something shift, because sometimes justice doesn't shout. Sometimes it just walks in the door, dressed in its Sunday best. Gloria didn't ask what happened when Austin walked into the bank. She didn't need to. When he stepped back into the car and closed the door with a slow, careful motion, she saw it in his face. Not anger, not pride, just confirmation. She kept her hands folded in her lap, her back straight. They were parked at the curb, neither of them moving to drive off. Well? She asked softly. Austin took a breath. They know who I am now. Gloria let out the smallest breath through her nose. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. I figured they would, she said. They had my face up on a screen in the lobby, right above the teller who tore your check. She didn't blink. Austin turned to face her. She apologized. Gloria raised an eyebrow. Before or after the screen showed her who you were? He hesitated. Gloria nodded once. She didn't look triumphant, just tired. I thought so. The two of them sat in silence as a mail truck passed by, the engine rattling. I don't want to be the reason someone loses their job, she said. Austin didn't answer. I really don't, she repeated. I was humiliated. But I don't think she's the only one who would have made that decision. Dealing with it? She shredded a check without a phone call, Mama, without even checking the back. I don't. So what do we do? Let it go? No, she said, firm now. We don't let it go. Gloria turned toward him, her eyes clear. But we don't let it eat us, either. Austin looked down at the steering wheel, nodding slowly. I'll still follow up with corporate, he said. I have a meeting with their regional director this week anyway. I'll make sure this gets documented, on record." But she reached for his hand, patted it once, then let go. "We won't demand punishment," she said. "We'll demand change." Later that afternoon, she sat at home with a cup of tea, sunlight warming the kitchen table. She opened the small wooden box where she kept Austin's letters, the ones from college, back when he still wrote instead of texted. There were only a dozen or so, but each one was careful, full of ambition and warmth. One of them, folded crisply, read, "I'll take care of you one day, Mama. You won't ever have to worry." She remembered getting that letter and tucking it away, thinking, "That's sweet, baby, but I don't need taking care of." Now she knew what he meant. It wasn't about money. It was about standing up when others wouldn't. That same evening, Gloria received a voicemail from the bank's district manager. Polite, apologetic, carefully worded. Mentioned regret over the unfortunate incident and a desire to make amends for the experience. Gloria didn't call back. She handed the phone to Austin, who returned the call with measured clarity. He didn't demand restitution. He didn't curse. He simply laid out what happened, listed the policy failures, and ended the conversation with a single request. "My mother deserves a formal apology, not a phone call, not a credit to her account. A letter, signed, delivered." The line was silent for a second. Then the manager agreed. The next day, Gloria returned to the bank. This time she wore no makeup, no dress, no jewelry, just a plain blouse and soft walking shoes. She didn't go to deposit anything. She didn't wait in line. She sat in the waiting room, quiet, composed, and watched. She watched who got greeted with smiles, who got asked for extra ID, who got waved through without question. And in the rhythm of the room, in the way the staff tilted their heads or pressed their lips or shifted their tone, she saw it. A nurse looks at the pattern, the unspoken sorting of people. It was subtle, polished, smoothed over with customer service tones and brand language. But it was there. She sat for nearly 20 minutes, no one bothering her, before the manager approached with the letter in hand. It was printed on thick stock paper, embossed at the top. He offered it to her with both hands. "Mr. Campbell, we want to apologize for what occurred here. It was unacceptable." She took the envelope without a word. "I've spoken to the team," he continued. "We're scheduling new training around check handling and bias awareness." Gloria nodded. "I hope you will consider continuing your relationship with Crescent." She stood. "I've had a relationship with this bank longer than you've been alive," she said calmly. "I'm not the one who needs to consider anything." Then she walked out. She didn't shred the letter. She didn't post about it online. She simply folded it and tucked it in the same box with Austin's letters. Later that night, as they sat on the porch, Austin leaned back in his chair, watching the dusk settle over the neighborhood. "Still want me to leave tomorrow?" he asked. Gloria smiled. "You've done enough, baby. You always do." He looked at her. "You sure?" She nodded, took a sip of her tea. "I'm not scared of walking into that place again," she said. "Not anymore." Austin didn't speak for a moment. And softly, "You shouldn't have to be brave just to be treated right." Gloria reached out and squeezed his hand. "No, but I raised a son who makes people remember how to treat others. That's more than most can say." And in the warm Carolina air, beneath the porch light humming with moths, the two of them sat in peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because they had each other. And that was more than enough. The next morning, Gloria didn't rush. She brewed her coffee slowly, watching the cream swirl like clouds across the surface. The kitchen was quiet. No TV, no music, just the sound of the spoon clinking gently against the rim of her mug. She'd slept soundly, but there was a tension still sitting low in her chest. Not the sharp edge of anger, something duller, something closer to disappointment. The envelope from the bank sat unopened on the dining table, the one the manager had delivered with both hands, as if the gesture itself might soften the memory of the day before. Gloria wasn't in a hurry to read it. She knew what it would say. Some combination of, "We apologize for the inconvenience," and "This was not reflective of our values." She had heard it before, in schools, in offices, in grocery stores. The language changed, the meaning didn't. Still, she was curious. She finished her coffee, washed the mug by hand, and dried it with the same kitchen towel she'd used since Austin was in high school. Then she sat at the table and gently opened the envelope. The letter inside was 3 paragraphs long. It began formally, "Dear Ms. Campbell," and went on to express deep regret over the incident and concern that any customer would feel unwelcome at Crescent National Bank. There were words like respect, training, and renewed commitment. Gloria read it twice. The signature at the bottom was from the district manager. Not the teller, not the branch manager, but someone farther up the chain. Someone who didn't see her shredded check. Someone who didn't hear the silence that followed. She folded the letter carefully and placed it back into the envelope. Then she stood up and got dressed. This time, she didn't choose the lavender dress. She chose a navy pantsuit, one she hadn't worn in years. It still fit. By late morning, she was back at the bank. The lobby was busier than usual. People came and went with envelopes and printed forms, tapping phones, balancing tote bags. The air was cool and smelled faintly of fresh toner and pine cleaner. Gloria stood just inside the door, scanning. The manager was near the side office, speaking with a woman in a gray cardigan. He noticed Gloria immediately. His posture stiffened. He excused himself and approached her with a guarded smile. "Miss Campbell," he said, "I hope you received the letter. We've been reviewing policies and—" Gloria raised a hand. "I'd like to speak with the regional director," she said. He paused, blinking. "She's not here at the moment." "I'll wait." The manager hesitated, then nodded. "If you'd like to take a seat." "I'll stand." Wasn't defiance in her voice. It was certainty. The kind that made people pause before saying something careless. The kind that couldn't be reasoned with, because it wasn't angry, just done. She stood near the front, arms resting gently at her sides. For 20 minutes, she didn't move. Customers passed in and out. Staff whispered. Danielle peeked from behind the counter and quickly looked away. At 11:42 a.m., a tall woman in a charcoal suit walked in through the side entrance. Her expression was tight, her stride brisk. The branch manager moved to greet her, speaking low and quick. She listened, nodded once, and turned to Gloria. "You must be Miss Campbell," she said. Gloria gave a single nod. "I understand you'd like to speak," the woman said. "Would you mind stepping into my office?" Gloria followed her to the back. The regional director's office was modern and spare. White desk, minimal clutter. A framed photo of her 2 children in matching soccer uniforms sat beside her monitor. The woman sat first. Gloria remained standing. "I appreciate you taking the time to meet," the director began. Gloria interrupted gently. "I didn't come for pleasantries." The woman blinked. "Of course." Gloria stepped closer to the desk, keeping her voice calm. "I'm not here for an apology," she said. "I've heard enough of those." The director nodded slowly. "I want you to understand what happened," Gloria continued. "Not just that a check was destroyed. Not just that I was embarrassed. I want you to understand what you taught everyone in that room that day." The woman leaned forward slightly, listening. "You taught them," Gloria said, "that suspicion matters more than respect, that assumptions carry more weight than history, that a black woman in a lavender dress is still more likely to be doubted than believed." The director's face didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Gloria stepped back. "I raised a son who built a company from the ground up, who pays his taxes, employs people, and still flies home when his mama's been disrespected. He doesn't need this bank. Neither do I. The director nodded again, slower this time. I understand, she said quietly. I don't think you do, Gloria said, but I hope you will. Then, without waiting for another word, she turned and left the office. The lobby was still busy. Danielle was behind the counter. She looked up as Gloria walked by. Gloria didn't stop. He didn't glare. She simply held her head high and moved through the room like someone who had nothing to prove. Because she did. Outside, the sky was bright with early spring sun. Austin stood beside the car, arms folded, watching the doors. When Gloria emerged, he opened the passenger's side door without a word. She got in, settled into the seat, and looked over at him. She listened, she said. Don't know if it'll stick, but she listened. Austin nodded. That's a start. They drove in silence for a few blocks. Then Gloria spoke again. You don't know how many times I've had to be quiet in rooms like that, she said. I do, he replied. Too many. But not today, she said. He looked over at her and smiled. No, Mama, he said. Not today. The flight back to Seattle was quiet. Austin sat in first class, but didn't touch the complimentary drink or flip through the in-flight magazine. His eyes stayed on the window, not really seeing anything. 35,000 feet below, cities and farmlands passed in shadows. But his thoughts were still in Charlotte, still in that bank lobby, in front of that shredder, in front of the woman who looked at his mother and saw a problem. He had always known things were different for her. He'd seen it as a boy, the way store clerks followed them when they browsed, the way teachers spoke slower when she asked questions at parent-teacher night. Even when they went to restaurants, Gloria's voice would change just slightly when ordering. Careful, measured. She never wanted to be seen as difficult. Austin used to ask her why, and she'd smile, tired, and say, Because some people come into the world already judged, baby. Best not give them more reasons. Now he understood that better than ever. When he landed, his assistant, Natalie, met him at the gate, iPad in one hand, coffee in the other. You good? She asked, eyeing him closely. He nodded. You don't look good, she said. Austin gave a weak half-smile. Didn't sleep much. Press call at 2 p.m., she reminded him. Investors at 4. Energy Forum dry run tomorrow morning. Move the press call, he said. Done. He appreciated that she didn't ask why Natalie was efficient like that. But as they walked to the car, Austin pulled out his phone and scrolled through something he hadn't looked at in years. His company's Ethics and Equity Pledge, the one he personally wrote after the protests in 2020. It read, in part, We do not tolerate discrimination in any form, not in our hiring, not in our partnerships, and not in our silence. The words felt heavier now, because silence had almost been his reaction. He almost didn't go to the bank. He had almost just wired his mom more money, told her to forget it, chalked it up as another bad experience. But something in her voice, not broken, just bruised, made him act. And thank God he had. Back in his office, the skyline of Seattle sprawling outside the windows, Austin pulled up the security footage from the bank. They had sent it reluctantly through a contact who owed him a favor. He watched it twice. Once all the way through, the exact moment Danielle shredded the check, the expression on his mother's face. Then again in silence, just watching the body language. No escalation. No shouting. Just Gloria standing there, dressed in lavender, holding her purse like it was the last bit of dignity she had. He paused the video, stared at the image, and that's when he realized something that hadn't occurred to him before. The bank hadn't just insulted his mother. They'd insulted everything she'd built, everything he'd become, his every speech he gave, every press appearance, every award. It all started with her. She wasn't the background of his success. She was the blueprint. That night, Austin sat in front of his laptop and began writing a new keynote. Not the polished, tech-driven speech he'd originally planned for the Charlotte Energy Forum, but something personal, something honest. He titled it, "The Power Behind the Power." And he started like this. "My name is Austin Campbell. I run one of the largest clean energy companies in the country. But before I was a CEO, I was a little boy with a single mother who taught public school, paid her bills on time, and carried herself like royalty, even when the world refused to treat her like it." He didn't write it for applause. He didn't write it for headlines. He wrote it so the next woman, like Gloria Campbell, standing at a counter, handing over a check from her son, might be met with respect instead of doubt. The next morning, he video called his mother. She answered from the kitchen, wearing her house sweater, glasses perched low on her nose. "You look tired," she said. "You too," he replied. They smiled at the same time. "How's Seattle?" "Still gray, still busy." Gloria stirred something on the stove. "Did I ever tell you why I named you Austin?" she asked. He looked up. "No, I don't think so. I saw a picture once," she said, "in a magazine. A black man in a suit standing on the steps of a courthouse in Austin, Texas, tall, confident. The caption said he was the first black judge appointed in that district." Austin blinked. "I thought," Gloria continued, "if I give you a name with power behind it, maybe the world will speak to you a little differently." Austin sat back, speechless. "But names only go so far," she added. "It's what you do with them that matters." He nodded slowly. "You did good, Mama." She smiled. "So did you." Before they ended the call, he told her about the new keynote. She didn't say much, just wiped her eyes, adjusted her glasses, and whispered, "Don't let them forget." "I won't," he promised. After the call, he stared at the screen for a long time. The image of her face, soft, strong, tired but proud, stayed with him. He sent a message to his team. "We're updating our corporate giving plan this quarter. I want a scholarship in my mother's name. For first-generation college students, start with $250.00, okay? Let's grow it from there." It wasn't a fix. It wasn't an apology. But it was a start. A way to take the shredder's judgment and turn it into something whole, something permanent, something they'd remember. Friday morning arrived with the kind of stillness Gloria Campbell had always liked. No wind, no lawnmowers, just the quiet hum of a neighborhood still waking up. She sat at the edge of her bed, smoothing the front of her blouse with practiced hands. The same blouse she wore to Austin's college graduation. Soft cream, pearl buttons, a tiny embroidered flower just below the collar. She pressed her hand to that little flower now, thinking about how fast time moves. On her dresser sat the invitation Austin had mailed her weeks ago, before any of this had happened. Charlie Energy Forum, keynote speaker, Austin Campbell. Location, Crescent National Headquarters, 11:00 a.m. Conference Room A. Gloria hadn't planned on attending. Crowds weren't her thing, and she never liked the way people stared when they realized who she was. "Oh, you're his mother." But now, after what had happened, after all that had been said and shredded and made visible, she felt something different. A need to be seen. She arrived 10 minutes early, just as Austin had asked. The building was nothing like the local branch. This was Crescent National's crown jewel, a tall glass monument with shiny metal railings, marble floors, and a reception desk that looked more like an art installation than a place to greet guests. Gloria stepped through the doors, her shoes clicking quietly, her presence drawing little attention. Not yet. A young woman at the front desk greeted her warmly. "Miss Campbell, welcome. Mr. Campbell said you'd be attending." She handed Gloria a guest badge already printed with her name. Gloria's eyes caught on it for a moment. G. Campbell. It looked official, important. For once it felt like the building agreed. She was escorted through wide halls lined with sleek photos of corporate success, grinning teams, charity events, award ceremonies. Austin's photo was there too, near the end of the corridor. He stood in front of a wind turbine, hard hat on, smiling as if he could already see the future turning behind him. Inside the conference room, rows of chairs were set up facing a low stage. A digital screen displayed the forum logo, the keynote title, and Austin's name in bold across the bottom. People filtered in, business executives, city leaders, community organizers, a mix of suits and blazers, heels and laptops. And right at the front, a single seat had been reserved with a white card that read, "Reserved for Mrs. Gloria Campbell." She sat, hands folded neatly in her lap, the way she always did. When Austin stepped on stage, the room settled. He didn't begin with stats or a slideshow. He didn't list accomplishments or talk about revenue. He started with a story. "My mother walked into a bank last week with a check from me. Not a loan, not a withdrawal. A gift from her son." And they didn't believe her. A few heads turned, surprised. A few leaned forward. "The teller didn't call me, didn't verify the account. She just assumed it was fake and destroyed it." Austin scanned the room. Now that story could end there, but it doesn't. He gestured to the audience. "Because we're here to talk about power, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is make people see what they refused to see before." Silence fell over the room. One of the women near the back, a board member Gloria recognized from the photos, lowered her eyes. Austin continued, "My mother taught public school for 30 years. She paid her bills on time, voted in every election, packed my lunch every single day until I left for college. But when she walked into that bank, all that history vanished under one glance." He paused, then added, "That's not just a problem of perception, that's a failure of design." A few people nodded slowly. Austin's tone didn't rise. He didn't get louder. But every word landed. He began talking about systems, how they're built, who they benefit, who they forget. He wove policy into principle, innovation into accountability. But through it all, the story of Gloria stayed at the heart. It wasn't just his speech. It was a mirror. By the end, the applause rose like a wave. Not polite, not performative. Real, earned. As people stood and clapped, Gloria remained seated, tears quietly gathering in the corners of her eyes. Not from pain, but from something else. Recognition, not just of her son, of herself. Afterward, people lined up to shake Austin's hand, but more than a few made their way to her. They didn't ask for selfies. They said things like, "Thank you for raising him," and "You're the real keynote." Gloria smiled, always gently, always humbly. When Austin finally came over, he didn't say a word. He just bent down and kissed her forehead. "I saw them listening," she whispered. "Good," he replied. They needed to. As they left the building together, walking down the marble steps into the sunlight, Gloria noticed something strange. Danielle, the teller, standing off to the side near the sidewalk. She wasn't in a uniform today, just jeans, a blouse, her hair tied back. Gloria paused. Danielle walked up slowly. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying, or trying not to. "Miss Campbell," she said, voice quiet, I just wanted to say I heard the speech, and I didn't realize. I'm sorry." Gloria studied her for a moment. Not harshly, not coldly. Then she nodded once. Make sure it doesn't happen to the next woman, she said. That's how you fix it. Danielle nodded, eyes brimming. Austin watched the exchange without stepping in. This wasn't his moment. It was hers. And she handled it the way she handled everything, with dignity, clarity, and just enough grace to teach without raising her voice. As they drove away, Austin glanced over. You handled that better than I would have, he said. That's why I raised you first, Gloria replied, eyes twinkling. Then the world could deal with me after. They both laughed, and for the first time in days, the sound felt light again. The next morning, Gloria found herself standing in front of her bathroom mirror longer than usual. The house was quiet. The kind of still, delicate quiet that lets a person hear the rhythm of their own breathing. She hadn't slept much, not because something was wrong. In fact, it was the opposite. Her mind had replayed the conference again and again, not just Austin's words, but the way people listened, not blinked past, not humored, listened. And that was rare. She pressed her hand to her chest, not from pain, from weight, from meaning. When she stepped out into the hallway, her phone buzzed. A new message, unknown number. Mrs. Campbell, I know this is unexpected. I'm the director of operations at Crescent National. We saw the footage. I'd like to meet in person, if you'd allow it. She stared at the text, thumb hovering over the screen. She'd had enough meetings, enough chairs across polished desks, enough formal faces repeating lines written in corporate training modules. But something in the wording gave her pause. Not, we'd like to discuss your concerns. Not, we'd like to resolve this issue. Just, we saw the footage. It wasn't the same as an apology, but it was close to acknowledgement. That afternoon, she sat across from a man who couldn't stop adjusting his tie. The director of operations, probably in his early 50s, eager but uncomfortable. Not because of her, necessarily, but because he knew the difference now. The difference between reading about discrimination in a quarterly report and watching it happen with your own eyes. I watched the security video 5 times, he admitted. It wasn't just about the check. Gloria said nothing. It was the way she looked at you, he added. The way she didn't even ask, just decided. He leaned forward, elbows on his desk. I've worked here 18 years, he said, and I never once stopped to think about how quickly perception becomes policy, how quickly silence becomes approval. Gloria nodded once, still quiet. We're launching a new bias training initiative, he said, but not the kind that just checks a box. I want to rebuild the entire approach. Hiring, retention, customer experience, every piece. Good, Gloria said. I'm not asking you to do the work, he added quickly. You've done more than enough. But if you'd ever want to advise us, I'd welcome your voice. She gave a small smile. You don't need my voice. You need to believe the ones you've already silenced. He absorbed that, sitting back in his chair like the words had added weight to the air. After a moment, Gloria stood. I didn't come for a partnership, she said gently. I came so you'd remember this next time, because there will be a next time. And if your system still sees someone like me as a threat, then they're broken, and no amount of smiles at the front desk will fix that. The director stood as well. You're right, he said. I don't expect you to believe we've changed overnight. Gloria picked up her purse. Change doesn't ask to be believed, she said. It shows up, quiet, consistent, and it does the work. She left the office the way she always did, upright, composed, sure of her steps. Outside, the sky had turned overcast, a light breeze pushed against the trees. She paused at the curb, watching the people walking in and out of the building. Not one of them would know what happened last week. Not unless someone told them. She thought of Austin's speech. of how silence protects systems more than any policy ever could. And she thought of her own silence, the kind she'd been trained into, the kind she'd passed down without meaning to. She wasn't quiet anymore. Later that week, an email arrived in Austin's inbox. It was from a major newspaper, not local but national. They wanted to feature his keynote, not just because of the Clean Energy Initiative, but because of the story, and the story of his mother. He called her immediately. "They want to talk to you," he said. "You okay with that?" She hesitated. "Do I have to smile for pictures?" He laughed. "Only if you want to." She paused. "Then maybe just one," she said. The article went live 3 days later. The check, the shredder, and the CEO's mother who refused to be ignored. It trended by noon. Not just because of Austin's name, but because the story hit something deep. People recognized it. In their own mothers, their grandmothers, their neighbors. Women who'd held families together, shown up early, stayed late, kept receipts, wore the right shoes, and still got questioned for existing. Gloria didn't watch the coverage, but she felt it. In the grocery store, a woman behind her in line gently touched her shoulder. "You're her, aren't you?" she whispered. "Austin's mom?" Gloria smiled softly. "I suppose I am." The woman didn't gush, didn't ask for a picture. She just said thank you, and that was enough. At church that Sunday, Gloria wore a pale blue scarf. People greeted her with warmer hands, longer hugs. They had always respected her. Now they saw her. After service, the pastor mentioned the story, not by name, but in meaning. He spoke of injustice, of grace, of what it means to hold dignity even when the world tries to rip it from your hands. He didn't have to say check or bank. Everyone knew. As the choir stood, Gloria caught the eye of another woman across the aisle. Older, silver curls tucked beneath a hat, eyes shining with something unsaid. They nodded to each other. No words needed. In that glance was a lifetime of knowing that dignity isn't something the world gives. It's something you carry, even when perception breaks, especially when it does. Crescent National Bank wasn't expecting a press visit, not on a Wednesday, not at noon. But that's exactly when it happened. A journalist from the Charlotte Ledger, small camera crew in tow, stepped into the branch with clear purpose. There were no raised voices, no camera flashes, just calm introductions and requests for interviews. Most employees froze. The ones who didn't whispered something about needing to speak with legal. Danielle wasn't working that day, but the manager was. He stood in the doorway of his office, trying to appear composed, but his hands gave him away, clenching and unclenching at his sides. He recognized the reporter's name. He'd seen it in headlines, the kind that came with follow-up stories, the kind that didn't go away quietly. He stepped forward, managing a tight smile. "May I help you?" The sergeant's head appeared around the high ceiling of the tent, and he smiled, consciously or not, at his teammate. The reporter smiled back, just hoping to get a few comments. "We're doing a feature on equity in financial institutions, particularly customer experience across race and income brackets." The manager cleared his throat. "This is a place of business. You can reach out to our corporate PR line. They've already been contacted, declined to comment. I'm afraid we can't accommodate media without prior notice." "No problem," the journalist said, unfazed. "We'll just stay public-facing. That includes interviews with customers." He turned. Right on cue, Austin Campbell walked in. He wasn't in a suit this time. Jeans, button-down shirt, sleeves rolled, but still unmistakable. He looked straight at the manager. No introduction. Just, "I told you this wasn't over." The manager's lips parted. "Mr. Campbell, if we'd known." "You would have cleaned up the mess," Austin said, voice low. "But you wouldn't have fixed the floor underneath it." The camera was recording now, red light blinking softly. Austin didn't look at it. He stepped to the center of the lobby, turned to the customers waiting in line, a mother with a toddler on her hip, an older man clutching a deposit slip, a young woman scrolling her phone. "I want you all to know something," he said clearly. "My mother came into this bank with a check from me, a gift, and they treated her like a criminal." People looked up, surprised. The man at the ATM paused mid-transaction. Didn't call to verify, they didn't ask questions, they just destroyed it, because they didn't believe a black woman could be trusted with a large check. The mother with the toddler shifted uncomfortably. The young woman's eyes narrowed. Austin pointed toward the ceiling. "And this bank was running my face on their screens, advertising me as a local success, as someone they were proud to partner with." He stepped closer to the counter. The teller behind it looked young, maybe 22, eyes wide with alarm. Austin softened his tone. "I'm not here to scare you," he said. "I'm here to tell the truth, loud enough that it can't be ignored anymore." The manager tried to speak again, but Austin raised a hand. "You've had your turn," he said. And then, like it had been rehearsed, but it hadn't, the screen above the teller shifted. "Meet Gloria Campbell, CEO of Solgen Technologies." His face. Again. That same confident shot from the conference promo. It hung there like a silent witness. Austin looked at the screen, then back at the room, and said simply, "This is my mother." He gestured toward the door. Gloria had just stepped in. Not for a stunt, not for performance. She was there because Austin had asked her to come. One last time. This time, not to prove anything, but to stand tall, seen, heard, and respected. Gloria walked in slowly, eyes moving across the room, chin lifted. There was no fear, only presence. Austin offered his arm. She took it, then turned to the manager. "I want every employee in this branch retrained," she said calmly. "Not just in policy, in empathy." The journalist raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "And I want you," she added, voice unwavering, "to understand that dignity doesn't walk in wearing a label. It doesn't look like a credit score, and it doesn't ask permission to exist." No one said a word. Even the camera stopped mattering, because every person in that room knew they were witnessing something that couldn't be erased or spun into a memo. It was too raw, too real. Austin leaned in slightly. "Tell corporate," he said to the manager, "the next time they feature me, they better feature the woman who made me possible." Then he turned, guiding Gloria back toward the door. Outside, the air was warmer, brighter. The clouds had pulled back just enough to let the sun through. Gloria took a deep breath. She didn't smile. She just exhaled slowly, the way a woman does when she's finished carrying something too heavy for too long. Austin glanced at her. "You okay?" She nodded. "For the first time in a while," she said, "I think I am." They walked to the car together, side by side. Two names the world would never again separate. The lavender dress sat quietly in the back of Gloria's closet, still pressed, still perfect, still waiting. She hadn't touched it since that morning in the bank lobby. The first time she wore it, she had done so with purpose, not for fashion, but for presence. She had dressed the way her mother taught her. Never let the world catch you looking less than your worth. That dress had been her armor, her prayer. Now, it felt different. Now it wasn't about being prepared for battle. It was about reclaiming something. Gloria pulled it from the hanger, her fingers brushing the smooth fabric. She held it up to the light, the way you hold something fragile that once held pain. And she smiled. This time it wasn't for defense. It was for joy. Downstairs, Austin waited at the bottom of the staircase, car keys in hand. When he looked up and saw her, his eyes widened. You wore the lavender, he said. She gave a small nod. Felt right today. He grinned. Looks even better this time. She shook her head, chuckling. Flattery doesn't get you out of driving duty. They stepped out into the Carolina sun. The air was warm, spring humming in the trees. Neighbors were out tending gardens, kids riding bikes, someone grilling 2 houses down. The whole street felt lighter, like it knew something had shifted. Austin opened the car door for her. Where to again? Back to Crescent, she said calmly. He raised an eyebrow. You serious? She nodded. Just for a moment. 10 minutes later, they pulled into the parking lot of the bank branch. It looked the same as always. The squat brick building, the automatic doors, the digital sign out front scrolling through rates and promos. But Gloria felt different. The lobby was quieter than usual. The morning rush had passed. A young woman at the desk smiled. Not the same woman from before. Someone new. Welcome to Crescent, she said cheerfully. How can I help you today? Gloria stepped forward. No business, she said kindly. Just wanted to drop something off. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small white envelope. To the staff, she said. All of them. The young woman took it gently. Would you like me to make sure someone reads it? Gloria nodded. Someone will, she said, now or later. As they turned to leave, a familiar voice called out, Mr. Campbell? It was Danielle. She stood near the counter, holding a clipboard. No longer the teller, her name badge now read, Customer Experience Liaison. Gloria paused. Danielle stepped forward. Her voice was steadier than before, though still careful. I've been meaning to thank you, she said, for not yelling, for not making it worse. Gloria tilted her head. You think I didn't want to? Danielle's face flushed. I know you had every reason to. Gloria softened. I didn't stay quiet for your sake, she said. I stayed calm for mine. Danielle nodded, eyes glistening. We've started a mentorship circle, she said, for younger tellers. We talk about bias, about pausing before reacting. That day, it changed how I see everything. Gloria smiled. Then it wasn't wasted. Outside, as they walked back to the car, Austin glanced sideways. Mentorship circle, he said. People grow when they're given room, Gloria replied, and a little heat. They both laughed. Later that afternoon, Gloria returned home and sat at the kitchen table. She made herself tea. Cinnamon, her favorite. The sun poured through the window, golden and soft. She opened the white envelope she'd left at the bank. Inside was a copy, not of a check, of a letter, typed on green stationery. It read, To the staff of Crescent National. My name is Gloria Campbell. I've been a customer here for over 30 years. Recently, I was made to feel like I didn't belong, like my presence, my trust, was a threat instead of a partnership. But I want you to know something. That moment didn't define me. I walked out whole. And I came back by choice. Because change doesn't happen when people stay away. It happens when they return, not out of need, but out of purpose. I forgive what happened. But I won't forget. And neither should you. Gloria. She folded the extra copy and tucked it into her box. The one with Austin's old letters and the bank's apology, and now this. A collection of memory, of growth, of power. That evening, Austin joined her on the porch. The air was thick with the smell of spring. Jasmine, honeysuckle, a neighbor's lawn just mowed. He handed her a small box. What's this? She asked. He shrugged. Just something I've been working on. Inside was a nameplate. Gold. Simple, elegant. Gloria Campbell, founder. Campbell Foundation for Equity and Access. She stared at it, breath caught in her chest. I set it up this week, Austin said. Initial funding's in. We'll start with grants for seniors, black women, business owners, folks who get ignored until they raise hell. Gloria blinked back tears. You started a foundation? We started it, he said, named after the person who made me who I am. She held the nameplate like a fragile treasure. Austin, she whispered. I told you once I'd take care of you, he said. I wasn't just talking about money. She wiped her eyes, then leaned back in her chair, letting the quiet surround her. In the distance, kids played. A sprinkler clicked on. The world kept moving. But something had changed. Not loudly, not all at once, but piece by piece, through dignity, through stillness, through that lavender dress. It had all come full circle. And for once, the ending was exactly what it should be. Not perfect, but right.